So here's the text. Listen closely, Genesis chapter 2. Then the Lord God said, "It is not good that the man should be alone. I will make him a helper fit for him." So out of the ground the Lord God formed every beast of the field and every bird of the air, and brought them to the man to see what he would call them. And whatever the man called every living creature, that was its name. The man gave names to all cattle, and to the birds of the air, and to every beast of the field, but for the man there was not found a helper fit for him. So the Lord God caused a deep sleep to fall upon the man, and while he slept took one of his ribs, and closed up its place with flesh. And the rib, which the Lord God had taken from the man, he made into a woman, and brought her to the man. And then the man said, "This, at last, is bone of my bones, and flesh of my flesh. She shall be called a woman, because she was taken out of man. Therefore, a man leaves his father and his mother, and cleaves to his wife, and they become one flesh. And the man and his wife were both naked and were ashamed." Now, I'm not really into three-part sermons, but I've got three things for you this morning. First thing, and we're talking about marriage, right? So the first thing is fit. We're going to talk about fit. And the second thing we're going to talk about is pitfalls. And the third thing we're going to talk about is possibilities. Good possibilities. And that's what I'm most excited about. So, fit. It says in our story that, God says it's not good for this guy to be alone. And maybe it's just because Adam was lonely, but I think the reality is that, Adam has a lot of work to do in the garden. God has a lot of work for him to do, and so he needs a helper who can help him, who's fit for him. And so, they look through all the animals. He's looking for the right helper, and he doesn't find one. So God has to, put him to sleep, make a woman, and bring him to him. And then, oh man, she's going to work. He's excited, because the minute he sees the woman, the man realizes this is going to work. She can help me. She's the sort of helper I need. She fits me. And one thing for all of us who are married this morning to just reflect on for a second is that I bet, no matter how long you've been married, that there was a point when you looked at that person who's now your spouse and you thought, he's it, or she's it. She fits me. And we need to, it's easy to lose sight of that over time. That this person who you've been living with, fighting with, raising kids with, she is your, or he is your partner, the one that fits you. Later on, I bet you that Adam, wasn't thinking to himself, yes, at last. When Eve came in the door after a hard day's work, he probably wasn't thinking the same thing he thought at that first moment, but the truth is she is the one for him, and so is your spouse. And we need to remember that. It's easy to forget. Now, Adam and Eve, they've got a lot of work to do. We often think that marriage is about our happiness and fulfillment. Like that is, God created marriage so that we could be happy, right? I think we think that. And so I have a quote for you. We read this at my friend's wedding last week, and it's really great. I don't know if you've heard of the poet named Rainier Rilke, but that's who this quote is from. And this is it. "To take love seriously, and to bear and to learn it like a task, this it is that young people need. Like so much else, people have also misunderstood the place of love in life. They have made it into play and pleasure, because they thought play and pleasure we're more blissful than work. But there is nothing happier than work. And love, just because it is the extreme happiness, can be nothing else but work. So whoever loves must try to act as if he had a great work. And man, I love that quote because, we do talk about love being work. I'm pretty sure Fred, a couple weeks ago, mentioned that relationships are work. But, we have a tendency to forget that, man, it's a great work. Like, there is nothing more satisfying in life than to persist in the hard work of love. And so that's what I want to be encouraging you this morning to be doing. Whether you're newly married for a long time, or not married yet, and looking forward to that, or just in all your relationships, we need to persist in love. We need to do the hard work of love. Now the second thing I'm talking about this morning is pitfalls. Pitfalls in your marriage. Now, there were no pitfalls in the story we read. That actually comes in the next chapter when you've got that forbidden fruit. That was a pitfall for Adam and Eve. But we bring the pitfalls into our marriages, unfortunately. Sorry to tell you this if you didn't realize it yet. But we bring all kinds of problems into our marriages, and the three that I want to highlight for you are, let's see here, fears, insecurities, and unrealistic expectations. I think those three things pretty much summarize most of the relational problems that we face together. Now, one of the blessings, mixed blessings, blessing and curse of marriage is that, your spouse has this tendency to point out your fears and insecurities and unrealistic expectations. It's amazing how long you can live without realizing what you're really afraid of and how insecure you are. Now, you may have noticed, you may have thought, wow, what is that bolt of lightning in out in the lobby this morning? This nicely dressed young man. We don't dress this nicely at SCC usually. If you were thinking that, let me tell you, I really had to do this morning because, when you're young and inexperienced, you gotta rely on appearances a little bit more. And so I decided that I would rely on appearances a little bit this morning. But our marriages are the same way. When I got married, I had sort of this ideal Joe that I believed in. And I wanted Amy to believe in Ideal Joe. And Ideal Joe is respectable. He's always got things under control. He's really smart and funny, good looking. And, there's a whole host of things that I wanted Amy to believe in. And, some of those things, it doesn't take that long to realize that they aren't true. It's actually pretty easy to keep up the facade when you're not that connected to people. When I was in college, I rented this house right across the street from SPU. It was great, man. I thought it was the perfect house. It was big. It had a fireplace. It was right across the street. But you know what? I would never buy that house. Looking back, anyway, it was drafty. It was old. There were rat problems after we moved out. I don't know how that happened. It had problems. But when you're just renting, when you're not really invested, it's easy not to see them. But man, when you buy a place, you're gonna, every little thing, you're gonna start realizing that it's it's going to bother you, it's going to be a problem. And marriage is kind of like that. We invest, we sink in real deep, and that tends to surface some issues. So, fears and insecurities, man. Fears and insecurities. I found that this was really surprising to me. That, you know, one of my insecurities, my insecurities are pretty smart. They like to masquerade as values. And this is how it works. Let's say, for instance, that my wife didn't do the dishes. Not that ever happens. And I get upset after coming home from a hard day at work. And I say, you know, I really value having a clean house. It's just a real value of mine. Or maybe it's something like, we're in a group of people and she makes a really great joke that makes everybody laugh. The only problem is that it's about me. And I say, man, later, Amy, I just really value us not making fun of each other in public, or something like that. The reality is that I'm just insecure about, I can't take a joke. I'm insecure. Or I have unrealistic expectations about the place, about what I clean up never getting messed up by anybody else. Because that's what it was like when I was living by myself. And, you know, maybe, you know, think about that. You have those values. You really will defend values. You won't usually defend your insecurities. But I found a lot of times my values, at least the ones that come up when I'm in an argument, they really have to do with my fears, my insecurities, and my expectations. Now, most of our lives, when we're living by ourselves, and especially, you know, when we're just kind of out doing our thing at work or in school, we're trying to, how should we say this? We're just trying to be comfortable. We're trying, you know, we know what makes us not feel very good, and we avoid it. We spend our lives constructing walls to make sure that we don't get in an uncomfortable situation, that we don't get, you know, we just don't get in a situation we don't want to be in. And, you know, the reality is that in our marriages, everything is open. And we can't construct a safe place just by keeping up appearances. This brings me to some possibilities. I don't know if what you were thinking was the piece of the story that stuck out to me, but I'll tell you. The piece of that story that stuck out to me was that last part, that they were naked and unashamed. It's just like stamped on right at the end. It's like the author just sort of snuck in that little detail to that story. But let me rephrase it for you and see if it conjures up some other meanings. So, what if in your marriage or in any relationship you had, you were really open, really vulnerable with your spouse, but full of trust, really vulnerable, but weren't afraid that you would be taken advantage of. You know, because that's the picture right there. That everything is on the table, everything is open to view, but you're not scared about that. And, you know, I'm sorry to say, that just doesn't happen very often in our lives. We're told by our culture